Cutler from Propel.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, you guys know, this is my favorite conversation to have with other PR professionals. But Zach Cutler from Propel is more than that. He is also now in the tech business. This is what I would say 80–90% of us talk about, what could be done better, why we have a better, mousetrap, but he's actually put his money where his mouth is, and we're going to get the game from him. Zach, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Kellen. Great to be here. I'm doing well.
Well, I just need you to just tell people why Propel, because we're so used to Fission, Meltwater, Muck Rack, and the list can go on. And now Propel is saying that the database is, I believe you have a deeper database, but I want it to come straight from your mouth so they can hear the elevator pitch fresh. And then we'll go into all things, PR.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working in PR, started my own agency in 2009, and we used all those different software tools. I mean, you name it. And what me and my team found was that some of them gave us good, journalist contacts. Some of them gave us good monitoring, but none of the tools gave us a CRM where we could actually understand how our campaigns were performing, how our different teams were performing, how each account was performing one against the other, and to allow us to improve our workflow, make our entire A to Z workflow more efficient, trackable, transparent, and give us the data so that we could understand what's really working, what's not. And also at the journalist relationship level, none of the tools gave us that to understand who previously pitched this journalist, was there engagement, was there not engagement, who on the team has the best relationship with this contact, and none of these things existed. And so I decided, to try to do some manual processes to make my own agency more data driven. And then I started getting really excited about it and said, to do this right, I've got to build a SaaS platform. And so I sold my agency about 3.5 years ago, went full-time into Propel. We launched our product about 2 years ago out of beta. And giving you some breaking news here, we just reached 100 customers. Yeah, thanks. And so we're really excited about shaking things up in the PR industry with our software.
Okay, and I don't know if you studied PR communications in school, but I will say my master's is in it, and I've taught it. Fission and Meltwater and Muck Rack and Propel, very few, professors, I don't care where you went, are actually practicing, or at least, 10, 15 years ago when I was in school, it's all they're teaching from the book. So when someone comes out of college and they say, wait, Fission, and that it's so costly, it doesn't even allow them in the door. And even some might say, Meltwater and Muck Rack is a little more affordable, but where is Propel as far compared to, Fission that can cost you $18,000 for the year if you get it for a deal from one of their people?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, that was one of the driving factors for why I was so passionate about it. Because me, all my employees, and pretty much everyone I had talked to in the industry felt like, okay, so PR software is mediocre and it's extremely expensive. Why is that? Why can it not be amazing and fair and a fair price? So, and it's because there's just not a lot of different tools that can kind of drive more competition, bring down the pricing, et cetera. So we're doing that. We launched Transparent SaaS pricing, freemium. So all our pricing is open. It's on our site. You can see it. We have annual or monthly plans, which is the first company in the industry to do that. Because we believe that, rather than locking people in for a year, like, we're confident in our product that they'll like it and they'll continue to use it. So we offer them the ability to just go month by month. And I'll tell you that we have extremely high retention. So I think our customers, find it as like a breath of fresh air that the pricing is, transparent. It's not locking you in to long-term fixed contracts unless you want that. And it's lower than the competition.
Now, being that, you're providing more data and, there are some groups of professionals out there, and I won't lie, I've been part of them, that share accounts. And so they're like, well, we don't want people to know who's sending what, right? But the fact that you're lowering the price so people can have their own, and you're offering, would you say that you're offering everything that your competition has, but just better data? Or are there some things that you have found that your clientele won't necessarily need, maybe like international tracking?
Yeah, so typically we have everything that a competitor has, but we also have the PRM, as we call it. So we're the original creator of PRM, which is public relations management, and one or two of the other companies in the space have since launched a PRM, which is great, because a PRM is basically like, you could think of it as a CRM for PR. It's the part of the software where you're tracking journalist relationships, you're tracking your pitches, who opened a pitch, how many times, who responded to a pitch, how were our performance on a campaign, on an account, a team member. It's kind of like the Moneyball of PR, which is one of my favorite movies. And we've kind of created that data center within Propel. So all of that is called the PRM, and really none of our competitors have a PRM that's anything like Propel. So you get the database, you get the monitoring, but then you get the PRM. And one of the favorites is our Gmail and our Outlook integrations. So instead of bringing the PR person into our tool all the time, we said, well, PR people really like to be working in their own email. So why don't we bring our tool into their email so that they can work where they want, and we just bring the functionality of Propel into Gmail and into Outlook with full plugins. And we're the only PR software that has that.
Okay, and so this is going to be far left question. Does Jonah Hill play you in the movie, or do you want someone else to play you?
I think Brad Pitt plays me, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. No, but Jonah Hill is the brains behind that movie. Yes. He's the brains behind that. And, of course, it's Brad Pitt, right? But I always tell people, ugly guys run the world. So I'd rather run the world than be, Brad Pitt. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, PR, it's all about your connection, and more it's becoming tech and AI. And you're a connected guy. I mean, we're a White House intern. You've had some fancy titles, whatnot. I've interned on the Hill. I couldn't get close enough to the White House, to intern. That's a different level. Your badge got you through some doors that they would stop us and say, no, let you, have your Congress member with you. Where do you see PR going? Is it going to be less who you know and more who you can, easily email and contact and LinkedIn in that face-to-face, especially in times like this?
So, I think that the way that PR people pitch is changing every year. Like, it's becoming, 20 years ago, it was so formal, like every pitch probably had a press release and it was all like formally written up and sent out. And, initially 30 years ago, I guess they were faxed. 20 years ago, they were emailed, but like really formal. 10 years ago, I think you started to see pitches becoming a lot less formal. Not every pitch had a press release. Now it's totally different where, you can pitch some stories, you pitch a contact on LinkedIn, some on Twitter, some on email. We still find most pitches are sent via email, but it's always changing. And, there's always new platforms. I would say that the heavy media relations firms, like, most of the pitching is done via email, and even the more like digital firms, the actual pitches to journalists are typically done on email. Pitches to influencers, of course, are done more on social.
Okay, and with automation, I love the book, The Future is Faster Than You Think. I tell everybody I can about it, and we know automation is here, and it's just going to, spread. I've gone into departments in tech companies and said, I could replace everybody here with, some software and maybe 2 people, maybe 1, right? Is Propel going to be where it's a fully automated pitch where maybe I have some software that even writes for you. You give it a paragraph, it writes, 5 pages. Do you see Propel going that way and just taking out the guesswork? Because the computer kind of knows what the other journalists or computer is looking for, especially when you talk about filters and all that other stuff. So where do you see with automation and that playing a part in Propel?
Definitely, yeah. So like we are working on that day and night, and we already launched an amazing feature called pitching preferences, where for every journalist, you can see not only what day of the week is best to pitch them, what hour of the day, but also the topics most likely to get a response. And you can also see their global open rate, their global response rate. And this is aggregated, anonymized data across all Propel users so that you can actually understand the behavior of a journalist and their preferences. And this is an amazing feature that some of our customers just can't stop raving to us about. And essentially what we're doing is we're continuing to build on that. So we're working on a lot of stuff that will help you to identify the right journalists to pitch for a certain topic, for a certain pitch, without you having to do all this legwork of building a list yourself.
Now, do you have a video on your YouTube, people, you can look up Propel General, that shows how that works? Because what you're talking about, like Instagram and Facebook and, TubeBuddy and vidIQ, they can tell you those things for social media. And I want to know, how social media engages with Propel. But I want to know, like, is there a video that shows that this is what we did? This is our, case study, if you would, but our example to show you that we pitched it at this time because the computer said so, and then they opened it and we actually got a placement. And maybe not just Propel doing it, but other PR professionals proving that this isn't just something that, we dreamed of out of the Twilight Zone. But yeah, I just want to know, is there a video out there?
So yeah, we have a bunch of videos on our YouTube page that show the different parts of the system, and one of them shows the pitching preferences.
Okay, so you guys make sure you check that out, and if you want to see more, because you really have a full channel if you find that team member who just does YouTube to show how this helps. How do you measure that? Because journalists is it the journalist coming back to you, or is it the PR professional saying, I did this and it worked? Like, that part alone is a short film.
Yeah, so I mean, the way it works is, since we built the Gmail and the Outlook plugins, we've been able to have over 1 million pitches that we've been able to analyze in an anonymized, aggregated way. And it's just like a treasure trove of Propel data where we can go in and we can say, John Smith from Forbes You know, he has a 38% open rate, a 21% response rate. He responds a lot to pitches about cars, and he responds very little to pitches about Bitcoin. And we can put all these insights together because we have that volume of pitches that we can analyze. And it's really cool because this is not like public data where anyone can go and look up, you know, John's articles and understand, well, from his articles, I see that he writes about XYZ. No, we're taking it a step further and saying, well, how did he actually engage in real life with, you know, dozens or hundreds of pitches in the past? And what trends can we learn from that?
I love that. I know that scares some people to say, I don't want you to know that about me, but I love that part of it. And then with social media, you know, many folks who are independent, freelance, whatever you want to call it, they have clients that they want them to do it all. So is there going to be a social media arm that pretty much does the same thing, saying, you know, post now, and also maybe you ask the journalist you want to pitch to, or you want them to know about this story? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, we have all kinds of goodies coming up on the roadmap. So a lot of social stuff is in there. And actually, one of the cool things that we're doing is adding additional influencers. So Instagram, probably also TikTok as well.
Okay, so then if you're adding the influencers, you're gonna then be, I don't want to say competing, but you're gonna be an alternative to, if you've heard of, what is it? It's Intelligent something in the UK, and their system is like $18,000 a year as well. But they tell you what are the best influencers and what their prices are. And to my knowledge, they have, you know, the biggest data for that. When will that be out? Because not everybody can afford $18,000 for, you know, a Cision, $18,000 for Intelligent. I think it's Intelligent IQ, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, please let us know.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely follow up. I don't know off the top of my head, but it'll be coming out this year.
Okay, yeah, I got to be on that mailing list, because when we get out of this next contract, I'm going to say now we got to do something new, because we will at least have to try. And you know, when trying, you know, I'm doing some of the pricing in my head. You know, it's $2,300 for the year, which if people break that down, buy it as much as you need it. That's, you know, when you have a client, even if you're a freelancer or a new PR professional, when you created this, did you have to know the tech yourself, or did you go hire experts to, you know, pull you up to speed and put it together?
So I'm not an engineer, and I definitely had to bring on, you know, engineering talent, for sure. From a product perspective, I've always been like a math guy. I love math. Like as a hobby, I do math in my head. I'm pretty nerdy. And so from like a logic and sort of problem solving product perspective, yeah, I mean, I've really loved playing that role for Propel and kind of painting the vision of the product, and then working with my team to execute just, you know, a really like different product than any of the competitors have. In terms of engineering, you know, I brought on my co-founder David, who is our CTO, and he's a amazing engineer. And then we also have other engineers and other R&D people on our team as well.
Okay, and when you started, did you initially go after venture capital or angels, or did you just bootstrap it?
Yeah, so I did go after capital, and we've raised $1.5 million. We have a few investors. We have several angels, and then we also have a accelerator in California as an investor.
Okay, are you guys going for any more rounds? And for those qualified investors listening, if they say, wow, this sounds like, this is, can I buy this with my Bitcoin? Because I have too much. Like, what is there going to be another round, or where can people find more insight about that?
Yeah, so we are raising a Series A round, and any investors are more than welcome to reach out.
Okay,
Zach?
and before they reach out, please let them know, if you can, minimums, if you know that already, because I'm part of a venture fund here in Florida, and sometimes you can get in for 5,000, but sometimes you need 50,000 or 500,000. So before they start bothering you with emails, I want to set the bar and say, this is where you'll need to be.
So, I mean, we're raising a multi-million-dollar round. So anyone who's, above, a $250,000 or $500,000, would probably be relevant. Below that might be a bit more difficult.
Okay, I just want to make it clear, because you'll sit at the events and you'll hear people say, oh yeah, I invested in Uber before it was Uber, and it's like you gave the guy 5,000. Relax. Relax. He needed a lot more. You might have had it, but to each his own. With the success that you're having and that you're going to have, because the best is yet to come, what is a community give back that you are doing or that you want to do in the future?
It's a great question. So one of the things that we started doing, it's an initiative called Propel 100, where we identify the 100 top agency professionals. Now we're working on the 100 top in-house PR professionals around the world. And we have a very strong focus on diversity for those lists. And that's something that's important. I mean, I have a physical disability. So for me, diversity, is close to home, because, I've lived through, having a diverse background. And so that's something that we're doing. And as we grow and have more resources, I'm certainly interested to, do more campaigns to give back and, kind of contribute to the community and do more and more.
Awesome. That's awesome. And let me correct myself. I had, talking about the influencers, the people that I know, it's influencer intelligence. So I can't wait to hear, what you have, and just, for me, I teach this stuff. Like I almost teach it for free. I hate to say that sometimes, but I've gone to, colleges, even during this pandemic, via Zoom, and trying to give the next generation, because I find PR to be something where you're going to need to know a lot about, you can't be an end user at the end of the day. You're going to have to know about this tech. You're going to have to be tech savvy at least. With you now going from California to Israel, which is like the home of VC and, angel money. I've interviewed someone who had a firm out there, and like you guys have the most money, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But there, it seems to be like a small circle. Was that the reason for going to Israel, to like tap into some of the, the best folks with the most money, who aren't scared to share that money? And I want to say something. I can't say it because you're in Israel, but I'm going to say it. You're not saying it. There are certain places like in the Middle East and Africa, they have tons of money too, people, but they're scared to share it with the youth. And Israel is giving it and saying, hey, young people, we believe you. You're in the future. I said that, Zach didn't. So, don't cancel him. You can cancel me all day if I'm that important. Like, tell me, like, what was your reasoning? I say all that to say, what was your reasoning to go to Israel?
So my reasoning is more on the personal side. I've always really had a strong connection to Israel. I have a lot of relatives there. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and from a young age, when I first visited Israel and saw this miracle of like a Jewish country only, at that time, it was only about 50 years after, my grandparents were in concentration camps. I just fell in love with Israel, and I knew that I wanted to live there. And once I finished university, then I started my first business really quickly after that in the US. And I got a bit tied down with that business. And so once I realized, I have to follow my dreams and, move to Israel before I get, to be an old man. So even though I had a company that was headquartered in New York, and this was before Propel, this was my PR agency, I decided to move to Israel. We had a lot of Israeli clients at my PR firm, and we also had a small office in Tel Aviv. So we had a presence there, but a lot of people told me, you're nuts, how can you leave your main office and all your employees in New York and move to Israel? But it was worth it to me. And, I commuted back every 2-3 months. And then I sold my agency, and the ecosystem in Israel is really, like you were touching on, amazing. I mean, I have so many people that are just willing to give me advice or willing to make a connection to an investor, to another entrepreneur, another advisor, a customer, without asking for something in return, because there's sort of this understanding that, like, the previous generation helped them to become an entrepreneur and to give them connections and help. And now they're paying it forward to the next generation. So it's an amazing ecosystem. I don't think it has the most money, but it is growing fast though. And in fact, it's funny you said that, because a lot of people in Israel tell me, for your Series A, you should go to the US, go to New York, San Francisco, try to, raise your Series A there, because there's much more money there. But there is significant money in Israel, and it's growing, and it's been a great experience to build a startup that's based in Israel.
I love that. We need a book because geo arbitrage, and just when you leave the US, for everything that's great about the country, there are certain things when you leave this country. I mean, you'll be more freer in Iceland, and I've been, and it's just like, I invest a lot in Africa. And I am, very comfortable in every African country I've been to, even if there's a conflict / almost war going on. And it's just something that I don't have to, one, you're not worried about, what the next person has, because you probably have more with your US dollars. So get the competition out. But please, let's challenge Zach. When can we get a book on why I left California, the Golden State, to go to in New York to go to Israel? Any plans to write a book or documentary?
Gosh, I love that idea. And now you've got my head, you've got the wheels turning. I'll let you know if I end up doing that, but no plans as of now, although it's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's needed, because there's so many people here that are depressed, or they're suffering from, something, health. The food when you leave here is so much fresher. I didn't know what a pineapple tasted like until I got to Cameroon, and I'm like, this is sweeter than the candy. I wouldn't even have cavities in my mouth if this was my option. But when I go to, I don't care, go to Whole Foods, go, whatever market, you're not getting the same type of food. So I just love that you did that, and love to at least see a YouTube to say, this is why I went here. I don't know if you're single, but even dealing with, I'm old and married, dealing with women overseas, it's not like trying to deal here with the Kardashians. It's a lot different. So, I mean, you can chime in or just let me be, go on my crazy rant. But if I'm wrong, tell me.
Well, it's funny because, Israeli culture is very, very different from American culture. Although one thing about America in Israel is that like every Israeli loves America, and there's a lot of cultural influence, but like on a day-to-day cultural level, it's very different. And in dating, you were just mentioning dating. There's like no games. It's just very direct, you know? So that's a nice thing in Israel. Also, the food in Israel is literally the best in the world, completely objectively speaking. It's really, if you ever thought you ate hummus in the US, it's not, it's like a it's really not the real deal. You got to come to Israel to try it.
Can you even describe the difference in the taste to somebody who's never left, you know, the state?
Let's compare it to like a delicious fresh piece of fruit to like an old frozen tasteless piece of fruit that's, you know, been stuck in the freezer for a year.
Gosh, you guys are missing out. And then someone's gonna say, well, if I go to Israel, you know, I can't stay for long, but it's not about Israel. It's about getting out and seeing something different, because travel, it will be your best teacher. And that's what it's really about. So stay as long as you can legally stay, and, you know, bounce around and come back if you're so allowed, depending on what type of trip you had. Zach, I want you to give the people and leave them with, you know, outside of you creating these businesses, what is your why? And what drives you? Because I know it's not the money. We were talking about money, but life is bigger than that. What is the driving force when you're doing business?
I love that question. I mean, it's definitely not about the money for me. I mean, the money comes with success, but it's not the driving factor. For me, it's really about creating something out of nothing, solving a problem, kind of taking like an existing industry or an existing problem set within an industry and like being able to solve the puzzle and like literally create a solution that improves people's work and even improves their lives. I mean, we just get so many amazing pieces of feedback about like, you know, you literally give me back 2 hours in my day every day so that I can like do my job, so that I can like, you know, think of better creative campaigns or get new clients or just be less stressed or whatever. So that's what's exciting for me, is just like the enterprising spirit, and having like making something from nothing. I always get a thrill out of that.
Well, you guys have been blessed with the game. Make sure you share it. If you're watching, you can like it, you can love it. But I thank you, Zach, for coming on. We're going to go off air.
Thanks so much, Colin. This was great. And